We're in a war. Spiritual war. This war has been going on for a long time, long before human beings ever walked the earth. It's a war that began with angels and demons. If you want to know more about how this war started and who exactly is involved, check out our mini-series, Angels and Demons. That'll cover the basics. But for now, the short version, there is a real spiritual war being fought right now between real spiritual beings, powerful spiritual beings, and you are in the middle of it. In fact, they're fighting over you, and the stakes are life and death, eternal life and death. And the good news, you can fight too. Actually, you need to fight too. And God has already given you the gifts you need to become a real spiritual warrior. He's given you the greatest spiritual master to teach you, Jesus. In terms of spiritual combat, Jesus isn't just, some master. No, he's the grand master. To become a great spiritual warrior, you need to follow him. You need to imitate the master. But there's a lot of different ways you can imitate him. In fact, there's a lot of different roles in the spiritual army. And we are going to talk about 5 of them. I know we talk about the angels a lot, but for real, these guys are intense. They're the main warriors of the heavenly army, of God's army. And St. Michael the Archangel, he's the commander. St. Michael is called the Prince of the Heavenly Host. He's the commander of the army of the Lord. The angels are the main forces God uses in his army. They're the perfect warrior, powerful, intelligent, and perfectly loyal. Each one of them already had their loyalty tested in Lucifer's rebellion, and each one of them remained loyal to God. Each one joined St. Michael in casting the devil and his demons out of heaven. This means not only is each angel loyal, but each one has power over Satan and his minions, because he's already beaten them before. He's already cast them out of heaven before. Also, each of us is given a guardian angel, one of these spiritual warriors given only to us, who guards us, guides us, and helps us follow Jesus. He helps us become a spiritual warrior too. That's why praying to your guardian angel is super important. Another important prayer is the St. Michael the Archangel prayer. Because St. Michael, he's not just the angel's commander, he's our commander too. We're also part of the spiritual army, which leads us to number 2. These are your basic infantry, the ones on the front lines of the spiritual battle, in the trenches, face to face with the enemy. But who are they? Well, most of us. Laypersons, not priests or nuns, just regular Catholics, moms, dads, single people, kids, teens, all of us. Any Christian really, anyone who has been baptized. The moment someone is baptized, they get drafted into God's army. Like it or not, pork chop, you in the army now.
Better.
This is because everyone is called to be holy. Everyone is called to be a saint, and everyone is called to be a spiritual warrior. Not just priests and bishops, sisters and nuns. Everyone. And you were given all the gifts you need to do this when you were baptized. The church calls this the universal call to holiness, which is just a fancy way of saying everybody called to be holy. That sounds hard. Yeah, it is. That's why we call it a war. That's why we say you're on the front lines. Because growing in holiness in this world, it's hard. But it's worth it. And you got the rest of the army backing you up. Number 3, the officers. These guys are on the front line. Dude, this is my video. These guys are also on the front lines. They're also in the trenches leading the foot soldiers. Who are they? Diocesan priests. That's right. Your regular old parish priest, he's like an officer in the spiritual army. A parish is supposed to be like a family, a group united together. And a priest is the father of that family. He's the spiritual father of that parish. Or in military terms, because that's what we're using today, a parish is like a company, a unit. The priest is the captain, the officer in charge of that unit. Being a Catholic priest gives you a tremendous amount of authority in spiritual warfare. Actually, in some cases, even more authority than angels. This is because a priest can speak and act with the authority of Christ himself. That's right, the Grand Master, the King himself. This is why a priest can forgive sins. No angel can forgive sins, and no demon can stop a priest from forgiving sins. A priest speaks with the power of the king himself. This is also why Catholic priests can do exorcisms. Yeah, I know. Everyone makes fun of Catholics. until you need an exorcism. But seriously, even in our culture, most people know if you need an exorcism, call a Catholic priest. So what's so special about Catholic priests? It's the authority. It's the spiritual authority he receives when he's ordained. He receives the authority to speak and act as Christ himself. Boom. Number 4. These guys are officers, but they're the highest officers. They're in charge of the officers and the foot soldiers. Basically, the generals are in charge of the whole thing. Who are they, do you ask? The bishops. That's right. Successors to the apostles. And actually, all that stuff we just said about priests having authority, well, the only reason they have that is because they're given it by their bishops, which means it can also be taken away by their bishops, which has happened before in certain cases. Basically, you get a really bad captain, like a really bad captain, and you've got a pretty good general. You might just, remove him from office. The point is, captains only have their authority because a general gives it to them. Priests only have their authority because a bishop gives it to them. Which is why, fun fact, a priest can only do an exorcism in a diocese that a bishop gives him permission to. Because it's the bishop who has the spiritual authority over that territory. Otherwise, exorcism might not work. Who knew? Being obedient to your bishop, to your general, and being respectful of him is huge in the spiritual life, and especially in spiritual warfare. St. Ignatius of Antioch, who died in 107 AD and actually knew the apostles, so pretty good source on how the apostles truly saw things. Well, he had some stuff to say about needing to be in union with your bishop. Actually, he said the way you know you're in union with God is by being in union with your bishop. And if you're not in union with your bishop, then you're not in union with God.
Stay in your lane, bro.
Basically, he said that God the Father sent his son, Jesus, the Grand Master. My words, not St. Ignatius. I'm paraphrasing. And God the Father gave Jesus his authority. And then Jesus sent the apostles, giving them that same authority. Well, the apostles sent their successors, the bishops, giving them, you guessed it, that same authority. So, how do you know if you're following God properly? If you're united to your bishops, who are united to the apostles, who were united to Jesus, who is united to God the Father. Bam. Simple logic. Number 5. In the military, special forces are groups that are specialized in non-conventional warfare, meaning they perform specialized operations that are not part of normal frontlines combat. For example, rescue missions, covert operations, training local guerrilla fighters, all that cool stuff. That's not stuff most people in combat do. That's stuff you need elite training, incredible dedication, and determination to do. Well, there are also special forces in spiritual combat, groups of spiritual warriors who are trained, dedicated, and determined to carry out a particular mission. Specialized operations that fall outside of normal conventional spiritual warfare. What are these groups? Religious orders. Religious orders are actually even more radical and dedicated than any special forces group, because to become a full member of a religious order, you need to make lifelong vows. Some orders add more vows, but the basic 3 for all of them are poverty, chastity, and obedience, which means every full member has made a sacred promise to God, a vow that for the rest of their lives, they will never own anything of their own, they will never get married or have sex, and they will never disobey an order from a superior. Talk about radical and dedicated. Okay, so they're definitely determined, but what about specialized? Religious orders also have certain specializations, often called charisms. A religious order's charism is a unique way they live the spiritual life, their unique mission. We could say it's their specialized way of fighting the spiritual battle, the way they focus on growing in holiness. Just like special forces in the military, these spiritual special ops can be incredibly different from each other. For example, one of the most radical religious orders in the history of the church, the Carthusians. The Carthusians spend almost the entire day in silence and prayer. Seriously, they spend 20 hours a day just praying, day after day, month after month, year after year, praying for us. If you want to see their schedule, check the description below. They're crazy. Talk about covert ops. Most people have no idea these guys even exist, but there they are every day just chucking spiritual bombs on the enemy. Hail Mary, full of grace. Lord is with you. Blessed are you. I mean, can you imagine the power behind their prayers? But not all religious orders are monks and nuns who pray all day. Some have very active missions, For example, missionaries of charity.
Big Mama T!
These are the sisters started by Mother Teresa, now St. Teresa of Calcutta, and they are radical. Their specialized mission is serving the poorest of the poor. They started by Mother Teresa literally picking poor people up from the streets of India, people who were so poor and helpless that literally nobody cared about them. For Mother Teresa and her sisters, they saw helping the poor who nobody would help, loving people who nobody would love, as a way of loving Jesus himself. Talk about a radical way of following Jesus. Those sisters have some serious spiritual power behind them. But anyway, those are just two examples of religious orders. An extreme from the prayerful, contemplative life, and an extreme from the active life. In reality, most religious orders are a mix of both. Each have their own charism, their own spirituality, their own specialized mission. Rather than the normal way, most of us fight the spiritual battle, living a regular life, but, growing in holiness, growing closer to God, or bringing others closer to God, or, like the officers and generals, leading us. Religious orders are much more specialized. It's not the normal, conventional way, but it is a higher way for those who are called. Alright guys, thanks for...
Can I do the outro?
What are you doing?
Dude, I haven't been in like the last 8 videos.
Fine!
Thanks guys for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.